Hey, um, this is a follow-up video that was prompted by a bit of constructive criticism that I got on the video where I talked about list rankings and player rankings. As I mentioned in that one, both the list rankings and player rankings are based on a peer review system, so they're not very accurate, they're very subjective. I'm sorry, we don't have anything that's better than that. Because lists are never the same. We don't have very fixed, like, I am bringing that list and then I do like that. That doesn't happen in bold action because there's always a little bit of difference. So a list that does well in one context, like a Gurkha list or whatever, might not do well in another context with another player, and it might be completely different. Like 40% of the lists might be the same units, but it's still a Gurkha list because you have a few Gurkha units. Um, so there's a lot of uncertainty in that video, although this is the best statistics we have so far. Now, the constructive criticism that I got was that I'm not very transparent about what a 1 or a 5 list is. So I thought I might show you. I have made 5 lists, all of them Gurkha lists, that are ranked in my system 1 to a 5. A 1 being a bad list that can't compete, where you actively made bad choices that are not good in the game. A 2 being a non-competitive list that sacrifices playability, strength for theme, or what have you. A 3 being the standard list you would see at a tournament that people would bring and maybe do well with. A 4 being a very strong list, um, like and once you'll see it, you'll know it's based on my my World Open War list, um, which was ranked as a full, not by myself. I had my teammates rank that list. So it's a very strong list where there are things that could still be optimized, but maybe that is done because the player wants it to happen in that way because of their play style or whatever. Um, you'll see that once we get to that list. And a 5 is a completely optimized list that is the best you could build a list for that format. Now, why did we not see all 5 lists at the World Open War? Why didn't we see 2 lists or 1 lists? 5 lists, I think, and we don't know, but I think it has to do what I talked about before, that players were sacrificing some optimization to fit their playstyle. So a 5 list is not a list that will automatically win, and therefore you should see one at every tournament. It's not the same. A 5 list is a list that is completely optimized, that you cannot press out more order dice, more power, whatever from the list. But it doesn't necessarily fit the player and their playstyle and what they want to have happen. So 5 lists are fairly rare, although we do see them crop up sometimes. 4 lists are very common in the top, the sharp end of competitive bold action. 3.5 is like, this is an average, maybe a strong average list that is fairly common. And if we go down to the 3 lists, they will crop up in some of the international tournaments. But they will be very present in your average tournament. I was at a tournament last weekend. A lot of lists were 3 lists, right? For me, at least, that's how I evaluated them. And there were some 3s, some 3.5s, like a little bit stronger, and some of them were 4s. So no true 5 lists, although there was one. Michael Fee is Polish that came pretty close for me. Um, so yeah, I think that's why the 5 lists are not really seen as such. Now I will show you what I mean when I say this is a 4, this is a 5, this is a 1. And I will start with the 1 list. So this for me is a 1 list. It's a British Gurkha platoon. That's a 1. It has 12 order dice, which is low. It has done something that you should never do. It's spent points on stuff that it's not really benefiting you. So a veteran first lieutenant, you're typically never going to use that for anything. Then it has a unit of Gurkhas, single unit, 8 man with all the trimmings. So this list has bought extra gear that you're possibly not even going to use. The LMG is not really useful on an assault unit. We have a Royal Engineer unit. So again, I'm using the competitive units here that you see again and again, but I'm using them badly. In this case, it has a light machine gun and a flamethrower. These two work at cross purpose, right? The light machine gun wants distance, the flamethrower wants to be up close and personal. And it's a huge unit, so it's an 8-man unit, so it doesn't really fit into most transports, and therefore it's bad. It's also buying a captain. Again, spending points on stuff that you're not going to need. There's a free forward artillery observer because you have to take one. We have the inexperienced infantry section here, again kitted out. So if you're buying stuff for your inexperienced infantry, you're doing it for fluff purposes. You're not doing it because it's good, because you get -1 to hit. And I bought rapid fire for this list because I don't have a lot of rifles, so that's an actively bad choice, right? I do have some rifles, but a lot of them goes into the loaders here, so it's like 1 extra shot per infantry platoon. Bad choice. I'm buying a veteran fixed medium machine gun team, which again, non-competitive choice. A light mortar veteran, that is small team, it's very survivable, but it's not very good, is it? A blacker bombard, inexperienced. I could have bought this regular and it would still be bad. A 2-pounder, which I bought that veteran with a gun show, very survivable. It doesn't do a thing, right? It's an anti-tank gun. Nobody takes anti-tank guns. A quad tractor, because I had to spend the points, and a Wolverine, which is an open-topped heavy anti-tank gun with a pintle-mounted HMG. This will get pinned and it's inexperienced, so that the pins won't really work, but you of course have your lieutenant. So this, for me, has made actively bad choices. This is a 1 or a 1.5 list. Maybe it's a 1.5 just because it's a British list that has a free forward artillery observer, right? But it's a bad list. This is what I mean when I say a 1 list. This is a bad list. Now for a 2 list, we could do the same. Again, 12 order dice, which is low, not very good, but we've taken the second lieutenant, so it's a little bit cheaper. Taking a veteran, we put in, and this is more of a thematic list. So the theme would be Burma here. So we have a Gurkha section again with sub-optimized choices of gear. We have a Chindit section with a sub-optimized choice of an LMG team. We have a free forward artillery observer with a sub-optimized choice of 2 extra men for him, so that he's no longer a small team. We have a regular infantry section with a light machine gun, again sub-optimized, and then native irregulars, inexperienced, and again suboptimal choices, bringing a submachine gun for these inexperienced dudes. The native irregulars used to be really good. They're not really anymore. We're not seeing them at all in tournaments anymore. And I've bought Vengeance for this this army, which is not massively useful because most of the army wants to stay at range. The infantry section wants to stay at range. The native irregulars are inexperienced, so they don't benefit from it. So it's not massively useful for this army. We have a medium machine gun team, regular again, because it's bad. We have a veteran, like mortar, again, a little bit more survivable. Medium howitzer here, because that's a little bit more useful. A Daimler Dingo, that's at least an armored car, has a forward-facing LMG. I have 2 of them standing on my shelf. I rarely use them. Inexperienced because sub-optimized choice, but it's very, very thematic for the jungles of Burma. Having that Daimler Dingo, they were everywhere. It's a good scout, in real life, it was a good scout car, but here it's just an open-topped vehicle with a front-facing LMG. It's not very good. And then finally, a Matilda. Um, I believe the Matildas were present in Burma. I don't actually know. You could have bought whatever tank. It doesn't really matter, as long as you don't have a massive amount of submachine gun, LMGs on the tank. It's just a light AT gun with a coaxial MG. In this case, it has a 9 plus, so it's not good. It's for a 9 plus tank. This is completely underwhelming, and it's slow at the same time. So this is a list that has been built trying to show what a thematic player might choose. I don't know. I'm not that thematic. I don't actually know. Now we get into the 3. This is what you would typically see from a Gurkha list at a tournament. You would see a second lieutenant, inexperienced. You'll see a couple of Gurkha sections, this time 7 men. 7 men is beginning to be the standard that most people use. I don't myself, but again, this is the optimized choice. A free forward artillery observer, a Royal Engineer unit with a flamethrower. Veteran this time could be optimized a little bit more, and that's why I'm saying this is a 3. Up and Atom is pretty standard, but this will of course not benefit the engineers, so it only actually benefits these 2 Gurkha sections, which do become very good with the Up and Atom. Then we have some good competitive choices that are not massively optimized, but we have a medium mortar, a sniper team, a flamethrower team, a boys anti-tank rifle. This time I bought him inexperienced. I didn't have the points for anything else, but it still is a threat. A light anti-tank, light howitzer, the 25 pounder. That is absolutely key. You see that in most competitive Brit lists. So an AEC heavy armored car, you still see those around sometimes. Here it's a light anti-tank gun with a medium MMG and 8 plus, but it could be different versions of it. A Jeep for the flamethrower, a Bren carrier for the engineers, and a 30 CV3 truck for the Gurkhas and maybe the lieutenant. And then a Dhaka steward. This is a very, very standard. You see this at a lot of tournament. This is a 3 list. Now, pushing that up into a 4 list, and this is inspired by my World Open War list that people rated as a 4. Inexperienced lieutenant, Gurkha Paras, 7-man units, 2 of those, a free artillery observer, an inexperienced engineer squad, Royal Engineer section, inexperienced infantry unit. This is a backline holder trying to stay on objectives in your own backline. Engineers with a flamethrower, Up and Atom for the Gurkhas, medium mortar team, regular sniper team, flamethrower team, Piat team. You can see the teams here is a little bit better than the other list that I just showed you. A light howitzer, 25 pounder, that's really good with a spotter. A little bit better here in the armored car section. This is a British Airborne Wreck Jeep. Very, very cheap for the points, 45 points. An LVT Buffalo. This is where you can see that this is based on my World Open War list. For this one, the engineers would go in the Buffalo, and then that would move up, firing all the guns as it went, and then the engineers would get out and flame stuff. There's a Jeep for a flamethrower, veteran to outflank, and there's an inexperienced Jeep for the Piat that can go into the table, and then a Dhaka steward. This is a very strong competitive list. So this is a 4. Could it be optimized further into a 5 list? Yes, it could. And I've done that here. This is a 14 orderized British reinforced platoon. For me, this is a 5 list. We have a second lieutenant. We have Gurkha Paras, 1, 2, 3 unit of 7 men Gurkha Paras, the free forward artillery observer, a Royal Canadian Engineer unit with a submachine gun because I had 3 points left over. All the points have been spent. The engineers are regular here because you're saving the points. Up and Atom is the characteristic that I'm taking for this one. The mortar team becomes inexperienced, again saving points to spend on other abilities. A sniper team to keep the mortar team alive. A flamethrower team. The Piat has been sacrificed here for other stuff that is more cost effective, but the flamethrower is still really good in a Jeep. A 25 pounder, again because it's just dirt cheap and very good for what it delivers. The stack hound, because that gives you an extra tank in your selection. It is a little bit expensive. I did buy the pintle mounted MMG for it. That could be optimized by taking that off and then using the 15 points for something else, but this is as close to an optimized list as I can make it right now. We have a Jeep for the flamethrower, inexperienced because I want to save the points. So you can see I could use maybe the MMG points to buy an experienced, a regular Jeep here. A Bren carrier for the engineers because the LVT is still not points effective enough, but the Brain Carrier definitely is. For 70 points regular with double LMG, so you can split fire. Perfect. And then a Darker Steward. This is a 5 list. So you can see here, we have a Gurkha list here, where I can make something that I would deem a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. So running Gurkhas is not the same as having an optimized list. It really depends on how you spend your points. And that was my response to the constructive criticism. Thank you so much for the comments, everyone. This is what I mean when I say 1 to 5. We could do this with all types of lists, skirmish lists, faux tank lists, whatever. Although some army builds for me always pushes them down a bit, like Death Stars are always a little bit difficult to push in the area of optimized 4 or 5 lists, Death Stars, because they don't really work in bolt action most of the time. But that was that was the video, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.